Welcome to the Everyday Miracles podcast, where real life stories of hope and inspiration are shared. Every day, miracles are happening all around us, yet we rarely hear anything about them. Why is that? I'm Julie Hedenborg, and I've committed my time and energy to bring these stories to you, including some of my own personal experiences. My hope is that you'll be impacted the same way that I was. Join me in my journey to inspire change in a world that so desperately needs it.
This call is being recorded.
This is Julie with Everyday Miracles podcast, and I am back to share with you another very powerful testimony. I have a guest out of Massachusetts, and two things I want to say up front. If you have small children that are listening, this is not really appropriate for small children. This has some strong adult type of things in it that you might want to save this for later. So there's also some things that we just need to share with care. So we're here today to glorify God for the way He worked in a situation that was very traumatic. I have a woman named Ruby on the phone. She's out of Massachusetts. And Ruby, can you share a little bit about what happened to you a few years ago?
Sure. So first off, thank you for having me and letting me share my experience and using your platform to do so. So I was shot in my sleep a couple years ago by a drive-by shooting that had occurred in the neighborhood where I had just moved to with a friend. And that night, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was around 3-4 in the morning. I woke up to the sound of gunshots, and just woke up in an extreme amount of pain and just in a huge state of confusion. Couldn't figure out, why was I in so much pain. I ended up going into the bathroom and just looking in the mirror, looking at myself, and just still just confused. And there's blood everywhere, and my bones are sticking out, and it's just a mess. So I'm calling out to my friend, and she ends up coming, and she goes to my room, doesn't find me there, sees me in the bathroom, and she's like, "Oh my God, Ruby, you got shot." And so there were a couple cops that night that were on duty and happened to follow up on those gunshots. And one of the cops happened to be a professor of mine, who was on duty that night and happened to get to me first. I was immediately put into the ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. And I had an emergency surgery. It just so happens, the same way you and I met, Julie, my mom was actually in Aruba on her way back home that same time. And the night that I got shot was also my father's birthday. So I ended up doing my surgery and whatnot, and as soon as I woke up, I woke up to like a room full of people, and I just started crying, and I was just like, please call my parents and let them know that I'm okay. My dad got to me like an hour or two later after he had found out, and my mom got to me the very next day, and it was hard. It was just so hard to see my parents go through what they went through, having to see me, through my whole, process of me getting shot and being in the hospital. I had a total of 3 surgeries to reconstruct my arm. When I was shot, it grazed my breast and went through my elbow and came out through my forearm. I lost 8 inches of bone, and there were 3 surgeries because the first one, there were still, I had to go for a second one because the first one, there was still debris left over in my arm. And then the second time, unfortunately, I got an infection, and then the doctor basically gave me an ultimatum. He's like, look, you have a severe infection in your arm. He's like, there's still debris in there. We could either, do a third surgery. And mind you, at this point, I'm exhausted. I'm on super heavy medications. I'm not quite all there. Or they could have put me on antibiotics, but there was a possibility of getting my arm amputated, and I was not gonna go for that. So as much as I didn't want to, I cried and I was like, let's just do this. Let's get it out of the way. And I went for my third surgery. And then from there, it was just kind of a road to recovery. And that's kind of more like where I want to get into, because this is where the testimony is really at, is more how I recuperated. I know from the very beginning, my mindset was the bad has already occurred. I didn't have the grasp of what had happened in my hands, but I have the grasp in my hands now of how I'm going to go about the situation. And I chose to be positive moving forward. The negative had already happened, and believe you me, as much as I tried to stay positive through the whole thing, there was a lot of obstacles that I had to go through to get to where I am today.
Yes. I know at one point you shared with me previously that there was a low point before you went into the optimistic part. I mean, obviously, you've been shot in the comfort of a home, like when you were sleeping in your bed. That's so traumatic. And then physically going through multiple surgeries, then having post-operative complications, um, having to go through all of this, possibly losing a limb. And you're an innocent person. None of this was even intended for you. Like, all the implications that I know, you shared before, there was a low moment, and there's a way that God really spoke to you in that. If you feel comfortable sharing that.
Yeah, of course. So after I had gotten shot, my mom immediately moved me out of my friend's house and had me move back home with her so she can kind of, take care of me and whatnot. And you know, I mean, we're getting quarantined right now as it is with this whole coronavirus. I mean, I was literally quarantined in my own house, rehabilitating myself for like over 2 months without going anywhere besides doctor's appointments. And I literally wanted to rip my hair out. But anyway, it was very frustrating because I'm a very independent person, and I had to learn how to depend on other people to help me.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised what you can't do when one arm is not functioning the way it's supposed to. I mean, I had trouble even picking up a cup. So things like that, or like self-care and things like that, I had trouble with for a little while. But it was difficult. I mean, going through physical therapy and like having to push myself and telling myself, you have to do this, because if you don't do this, like, you could stay like this permanently forever. Um, and I remember just getting frustrated, so frustrated, and being so upset, and just questioning myself and questioning God, like, why would you allow this to happen to me? Like, I'm a good person, I don't think I'm a bad person. Why would this happen to me? Um, and I remember crying to my mom, telling her, if I'm questioning God, what do I have? I don't have anything. And I went through a period as well where I started to kind of develop like a second personality where I didn't feel like I wasn't even there. Like I was almost non-existent in my own body, because there was another entity per se that kind of took over, and she looked like me, and she She sounded just like me, but she was very vindictive and very manipulative. Um, I would hear this voice that, especially at dark times where like, I wanted to just kill myself. Like I didn't want to be here. I was tired of going through everything that I was going through. I remember taking a walk, a very long walk, and I came across a bridge, and I was listening to music. I had music in my headphones, and I just was like, this is it. Like I'm ready to jump. And I kid you not, Julie, like seconds before I was ready to just do it and be done with it, I was tired of hearing that voice telling me I wasn't good enough, that I should just do it, that people would be better off. I heard this song. There's this artist named NF. I'm not sure if you know him or not, but he's considered like a Christian rapper.
Yep, I've heard.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a song called Mansion. And I write poems as well, so um I connected very, very, very much with the song because I felt at that moment that I wasn't being understood. I wasn't being heard. No one was capable of understanding the pain that I was going through or answer my questions as to, why it happened and what have you. And when Mansion came on, it was the total opposite. I was like, oh my God, there is a God. That I'm like, this is exactly how I feel. There's no, this is how I feel from even things way before me getting shot. Like this is my life. Just putting the cards on the table. This is it. And shortly after, I had a friend also who was calling me, contacting me that night, and I had told her that, I'm gonna jump. I'm done. I don't want to live anymore. I kid you not. After I had heard the song, she showed up. I don't know how she found me, Julie. She showed up out of nowhere, and she was like, "Get in the car." And I got in the car, and we talked, and she drove me home, and that was it that night. And from there I was just like, okay, like I need to find what my purpose is. I need to figure this out. I can't stay like this, and mentally I need to address those issues. So I spoke to my doctor, and I told my doctor that I needed to get into like some kind of rehab. But when I finally got to the rehab, it was like I took 10 steps back instead of moving forward. I came across all types of walks of life. You're talking about people who've gotten raped or have, addictions or depression, anxiety, and these are all negative things. And like I said, all the negativity already happened. I'm trying to like claw my way out of this because I don't want to focus on that. My focus was on trying to rehabilitate myself and get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally made the decision. I had went a whole day, and I went back a second day just to give it another try. I'm like, maybe today will be better. And honestly, I felt even worse. So I checked myself out, and I walked out, and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, God, this isn't for me. Like this is not for me. This is not how I'm gonna recuperate myself. I'm gonna just finish the job here if I continue here. So I decided to go from there, and I ended up finishing my rehab with my physical therapy. And I was just like, okay, next thing that I need to take care of is I need to get back to work. I need to get back to living on my own again, gaining back my independence. And 7 months later, after my gunshot, I was able to do that. And it was difficult at first when I had moved by myself. Actually, my first couple nights I slept in my closet. because I was so afraid of having a window in my room and just being exposed and not knowing which angle I could potentially get hurt, you know?
Oh, I can't imagine.
So, oh, it was difficult. It was the hardest. I remember crying myself to sleep because I was just so scared. And my mom, it was kind of like tough love, and I thank her so much for it. And I thank God that I have such an amazing woman to call my mother, because I mean, I swear she's an angel that walks on this earth. And she told me, she's like, Ruby, you know, you need to get through this. And the only way to do it is, I kind of have to just like push you to do it yourself, kind of thing. I don't want to say push me into the pit of wolves, you know what I mean? But you got to get that nudge so that you could get in there and get back into being normal again, you know?
Yeah.
So I got over that. You know, I ended up getting a job actually with the company that my mom works for. And I ended up working for a call center. And one day, this was like 3 months later after I already started working there, someone thought it'd be funny to pop balloons in the call center. And I remember I was on a call at that moment, and I remember taking off my headphones and ducking under my desk, and I was just like hysterical. And they had to bring like the bosses to come and get me out from underneath, and I just, like, I had a complete mental breakdown. And they ended up getting like a therapist on the phone to try and calm me down. And I decided right then and there, I was like, this isn't for me. I'm out of here. I walked out. So my mom was a little disappointed, because she's like, you know, I pulled some strings for you to get this job. And I was just like, Mom, it's not for me. I can't do it. So 2 weeks later, I ended up getting my job where I used to work at when I got shot. And things kind of progressed from there. I ended up putting myself through school. And this is kind of like where everything kind of starts to kickstart with um, recuperating. Um, I don't want to keep rambling on, but when I got to school, I ended up having a class with an English teacher who, God bless her. I swear, all the faces that have come into my life, all the people that have come into my life that have helped me are like, their faces are just engraved in my heart. I'll never forget them. And I remember her telling me, you know, we have a final project. You can write about anything you want. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to do my poem. I've been wanting to write about my experience, and I think I'm going to take advantage and do it. And I did. I named the poem I'm Alive Again. I did get to share it with you. As much as I would love to share it with people right now, I'm in the process of getting it published. So I can't share it right at this moment. But as soon as I publish it, I will definitely send it to you so you have it. However, when it came to the time for me to demonstrate or present, I should say, my poem to the class, it was I felt like I was being liberated. Like the chains, the heavy ball chains that I was holding, that they were just taken right off as soon as I finished reading everything, because I'm starting to let people in now with my story. You know, it's not, oh, feel bad for me. It was like, no, this is my story, and I'm going to move forward from this. And every step that I put towards, you know, I don't want to say becoming normal, because nothing's ever normal after something like that.
Yeah.
But to accept it and to move forward, and I did just that. I had the whole room crying. I was crying myself, just in my feelings, because as I was reading it, I was getting backflashes of those moments of being in the hospital, seeing my mom, just the frustration, wanting to jump, and all I can say, Julie, is that with my experience, I thank God for it. Which is kind of crazy. Like, how can you thank God for getting shot? No, I'm so grateful that it happened, because it put so many things into perspective for me. And I'm not the same person anymore. If not, I think I'm a better version of myself because of it. We did go to court, and I think it was I didn't miss one single court date. I went to every single one, even though they told me, you have the option, you don't have to go. And I just remember seeing their faces, and my parents, my mom and my dad, they both came with me to court. And I remember my dad just being so upset, like I could just kill these kids for doing what they did to my daughter. And my mom just worried about me and trying to be supportive. And myself, my mentality was more like, I can't miss a beat in this thing, because I need to make sure that I'm on top of everything, what's going on with them, what's going on with me. And I remember one day I got a call at my job, and it was kind of like it was a spur of the moment kind of thing. They're like, we need you to come to court right now. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, no, you need to come, and you need to testify. You need to, talk to the judge and present your story of what happened. And I remember just praying the whole time on my way there. I was just like, God, please just help me. Help me get the right words, and help me express myself, so that whatever's in my heart that I can describe, or put into words, that you can put those things into words for me. And when we got there, the judge asked me a couple questions, and I remember her specifically telling me that I had to just look at her and just, keep my eyes on her. Don't look at the defendants or anything like that. But I remember asking her if I could turn myself towards them, and she's like, well, for safety reasons. I ended up turning my whole body. And I remember looking at them, and I said, I want you to get a good look at me. Look at me. I was like, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. I said, you made a poor choice. I was like, and it's affected me tremendously, but I forgive you. And I knew, Julie, that I needed to forgive them, so that I could forgive myself and move forward. It may not necessarily be completely for them. It was for me. And I remember my father's face, just he was dumbfounded. He was like, I can't believe you even did that. I remember I had the whole courtroom crying. Even their parents were there, and they were crying. And they ended up getting some time and whatnot. And I got escorted out of the courtroom, and then shortly after, the families and whatnot got escorted out, for our protection and whatnot. But I knew from there that the ball was now in my court. And I was the Kobe this time, and I was gonna make that shot.
That is
And
so amazing that you were able to
yeah.
have the strength to do that.
Oh my God, it was hard. Let me tell you, I was so choked up, and I could barely get the words out, but I was able to to forgive them, and the judge was like, you have more of a heart than I do, because I wouldn't. And you're talking about kids. I mean, I was 24 at the time when I got shot, and you're talking about kids who were like no younger than me. They were like 19, 18 years old when this happened. They had their whole life ahead of them, you know, and I remember having a conversation with a friend who happened to be in prison, and he told me the way some people think, as far as, you know, they could care less of what happened or what have you. And I'm like, well, whatever the case is, I know that they will never forget about me.
Yeah.
Regardless of what they choose to do with that forgiveness, but I know they will not forget me, and they certainly won't forget my face.
Yeah.
And it was difficult though too, because I mean, from a physical aspect, it wasn't so much from recuperating from my physical, as far as like my arm. It was mentally, emotionally. I mean, I started to gain tons amount of weight, to a point where and I'll be totally honest, because I'm quite proud of how far I've come. I mean, I got to a point where I was 258 pounds. I mean, I was very, very heavy, and I'm very short. I'm only 5'2", so it was very, very uncomfortable for a while. And I remember going through a program to like help me with like weight management and stuff, and I ended up speaking to a guest speaker there and asking her a question about, you know, like eating habits and things of that nature. Anyway, what I'm trying to get into is just basically stating that not only with my weight gain, or like the physical therapist, or the therapy that I've gone through as far as like mental wise,
Mm-hmm.
all of those people helped me to realize things, not only from me getting shot, but also things that have occurred to me in the past. You know, like I hate that word. I hate the word victim, because I'm not a victim. It's just something very unfortunate happened, but it is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
you have to move forward. I was molested at a very young age for quite a while. So I was about like 10, 11, and you know, amongst other things. And those were demons I didn't realize that I was still fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also the reason, Julie, why I say that I am so happy that that shot, even though it wasn't meant for me, it was, because it changed my whole life around. And I was able to address things from my past that were literally holding me as a prisoner. It was stealing life away from me. I wasn't able to live because I was holding on to these things for so long. And finally, my last straw, and this was right before I went to Aruba, that I had told my mom, I said, Mom, if I don't get rid of my past, I will never have a future. I need to accept these things, and I need to make my peace with them, and I need to move forward. I can't allow these things to have a hold on me anymore.
Mm.
And the same way that I forgave those 3 kids is the same way I forgave myself. And you know how they say that you could be your worst critic?
Mm-hmm.
I was my worst critic and my worst enemy for such a long time. And then after that day, I told myself, we're going to go to Aruba, telling my mom, we're going to go to Aruba and we're going to have an amazing time. I'm like, I'm going to stuff my face like there's no tomorrow, and I'm just going to have a freaking blast. I'm like, I'm going to love every minute of it. I said, so when I come back home, I'm going to have my surgery, and I'm going to, like, it's just going to be different from here on out. And I've had what was it? We got back from Aruba, I think a couple days after you got home, right?
Yeah.
And I went to work the next day, literally the next day. And if anyone's traveled that much, it's almost a 24-hour kind of thing. So you're totally jet lagged. Worked the next day, and then the following day I went in for surgery. And I recuperated, and I'm doing excellent. I've actually lost, Julie. I know this aside from the whole thing, but I've lost 70 pounds.
Wow.
70 pounds. Oh my God, yeah. It feels so good not having all the extra weight. It's phenomenal.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
fabulous.
you so much. Thank you very,
Um,
very much.
I'm amazed. It's so neat too how you went to Aruba and here I was. We met they had this little excursion. We were both on excursions and there were these
Yeah.
groups near the swim area. I have my back issues and then you've had your rehab with your arm. And so, the beginning of that trip, I think I told you the first thing I did, I just prayed. I said, God, if there's anyone here, just show me. And it's just
Mhm.
you and me. And there was one other person. I think we frightened her away. You had, the guys kept trying to convince us to come onto the rocks, go swim down below, and they're very slippery rocks. And so both of us were just trying to be cautious, and they kept nudging us. And finally, I'm like, "Look, I have back issues," and you're like, "Look, I was shot. I've got hardware." And I look, here is where your arm is. You've got a tattoo that says "Forever Blessed," and they're like gunshot wounds. Like what? And I think it's just to meet you coming through all of this. And I think my husband said, I looked up from the swimming hole and there you are, your arms were flying. I knew, oh my gosh, she's podcasting. But I mean, for you to look at me and us to start talking, here I'm like, well, I'm a nurse, you got shot. And we started talking. And then I talked to you about my podcast, obviously. And you say to me, I'm at that point where I feel like I'm ready to share my story. I'm ready to share my testimony. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I talked about it the whole night at dinner. But anyway, God is so amazing the way he orchestrates things. And I want to go back, hearing so many things in your story. And I loved your poem. It made me cry. I definitely want you to send that to me when you get it published and we're able to do that because
Oh
it's
yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful. It's powerful. But I hear, obviously he sent people into your path.
Mhm.
You go through all this trauma, you're on the bridge, and you're ready to end things. And in a simple song, in a word, God can change everything in a word, in a moment. And then to have your friend right there,
Mhm.
I believe that is God. and,
Oh, absolutely.
and I want you, if you could, there are other people listening. I have had several people write to me talking about being in that pit where they're feeling like they're considering that option, and that is very. I'm glad they're reaching out to me, and I pray for them. But it's very heartbreaking to hear that people are struggling like that. But you know what it was like to be on that bridge and to be at that point. Like if you could speak to someone right now today who's at that place, what do you say to that person?
Please don't give up because you're so important, and don't end your story because your story will unfold if you just give yourself the chance like it unfolded for me. I'm so grateful to be alive, and I'm grateful for the second chance that I've been given. And um you are the author to your own story, and don't let it end because life is precious. Even in the midst of something so dark, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Just like that song that I had mentioned, that
Mm-hmm.
song, it's I don't want to say it's a dark song, but there's just a lot of different situations that he addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And there's tiny little verse, Julie, and I'm telling you, I'm like listening to the song for like 2 straight years, okay?
Yeah.
And never ever did I put two and two together. There's this little verse that says, God says I'm not locked in. In other words, there's always another option. you're not, this struggle may be temporary, but it's not going to last forever. You know, you
Mm-mm.
may be frustrated, you may be hurt, yeah, I got shot, but you want to know something, and that's something that I really want to bring to light to people as well, is that you can't, we're all human. We've all felt emotions like frustration, wanting to give up, not feeling good enough, all these different types of emotions. Yes, the situation is different as far as like you may not know what it's like to get shot, but the feelings that come with it are very much real and are very much comparable, and is something that we can all relate to. So if you could just be open-minded, and other people out there too. It's not necessarily the person that wants to end things and jump. It's, I want other people to understand as well that when someone reaches out, please be willing to listen, because you never know if you're that person that's going to make or break, the whole situation for someone else. Be mindful, be respectful, be open-minded. Don't be judgmental. Just try to understand, even if it's just listening. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it goes a long way. Um, and that's what it did for me. I mean, that song still, I'm so grateful, so grateful. I've actually gone to two of his concerts, and I kid you not, I feel so liberated. It's like going to church, and like when you just get baptized, that feeling. You're like, oh my God, like, wow, like I'm ready. I'm ready to conquer whatever God puts in front of me, kind of deal.
Yes.
It's That's what that concert feels like. I feel liberated, like my demons, my sins, everything is just being washed off, and I'm just being rejuvenated. And
Wonderful.
that's that's how I want people to feel, if I could put it in words, for people that are in that predicament, and those who are not, and how they could go about addressing the matter.
Mm-hmm. I want to say, obviously, I want this to speak to people that are enduring some kind of trauma, because I think that's huge. But
Mhm.
I disagree with what one of your friends said about how those guys don't have a conscience and they don't care. And thinking back, that's another huge point that you make in this testimony: the power of forgiveness. And
Mhm.
I think those guys probably sat in that cell and saw you do that over and over in their head, and I think they saw Jesus in you. I do. I think they were affected. Their whole life could be changed because of seeing you, an innocent person that they hurt, stand up and say, "Look at me." You were brave enough to do that, and you forgave them. I think that is huge piece of this testimony, to be able to do that, and how to feel liberated now, and to be able to look back. I mean, I'm sorry that you went through so much trauma, but for you to be able to look back on it now, and
Mhm.
see the good that's come out of it, is the growth, and to be able to work through the previous traumas is beautiful. So I thank you so much. I look forward to sharing that poem. um how is your arm now? How are you doing now? Can you share that?
My arm is okay for the most part. I mean, some days it's a little difficult, like when it's cold or raining outside. Good old spring weather. Things get a little bit more tough, only because I get very stiff. Um, but I try to take measures as far as like keeping warm and wrapping up my arm and things like that, so that doesn't happen, because it's very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So much so, um, sometimes the pain is just like, it's unbearable, but I get through it.
Mm-hmm.
In Massachusetts, I mean, majority of the year is cold anyway, so, but getting through it, everything's good. I have my arm intact. That's a plus.
Yes.
So all is well.
When you almost lost it. So thank you, Ruby,
Mhm.
so much. Is there anything else you want to share?
Um, just like I said, I mean, as far as gun violence is obviously not okay. I think it's important for people to take guns into consideration, that it is a weapon, and there can be deadly situations that could come out of it. But to just be responsible, and as far as feeling like you're alone, and that you're not worth anything, you're worth so much more. And I may not physically get to meet you or any of the people that are listening to this. I may not see you in person or get to have the opportunity to speak to you, but I care. And if you guys ever need to reach out, whether it's myself, whether it's Julie, whether it's the podcast that she puts through, or just reaching out to someone that you trust, please do it, because you matter and you're so important, and your life and your story is not finished. Live your life and live it as best as you can, because you only get it once. Some of us are lucky enough to get a second chance, but live it well.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruby, so much. And I know, from my understanding, there's still some litigation that is still pending on this. And so I will, if you reach out to me, I can relay your messages to Ruby directly. At this point, if I have an email for her that I can list below, I will. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. If you have a miracle that you would like to share, please reach out to me and share it with me at everydaymiraclespodcast@gmail.com. I know some people have been reaching out on Messenger and even through the reviews on iTunes. I don't always see those right away. So the best way to reach me would be through the Everyday Miracles Podcast at gmail.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram. We're on lots of platforms now: Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, iTunes. It's been amazing. So thank you for sharing with us today. I was immensely blessed, and God bless you. Thank you for listening.